And for those of you who aren't familiar with Braze, it's basically a customer engagement platform where we forge human connections between consumers and the brands they love through delivering very highly personalized communications and most of all experiences. So my team within Braze specifically kind of functions as a consultancy, and we work with our most strategic partners to kind of understand what are the challenges they're facing and really overall what keeps them up at night. And we work to leverage our research as well as the power of our platform to really help support in helping build those growth strategies. And so I'm really excited to be speaking to Pat within the working at Bose within the retail industry as we head into a holiday like none other, to understand some of the challenges he's facing and have a great discussion. So Pat, it's great to see you. Would love to just have an introduction about you and your role at Bose.
Great. Nice to see you too, Emily. Thanks, Brand Innovators, for having me. So my name is Pat LaCroix. I've been at Bose about 6 years now. The scope has shifted, expanded over time. Nowadays, kind of responsible for all things demand generation, if you will, driving demand for the Bose brand, encompassed of media, social, sponsorships and partnerships, brand marketing and activation at large.
Awesome. So really excited again to have you here, especially kind of representing the retail category today, as we know that we are facing some very unique challenges, especially this year. So would love to understand, specifically within retail as well as kind of the consumer electronics industry, what are the key challenges you're seeing, especially as we head into holiday?
Let's see. I mean, key challenges. I think just the rate of change, how the changes accelerated, obviously, for so many industries and companies in 2020. Just consumer behaviors and preferences. I mean, they evolve so rapidly and so quickly. So, for those of us in consumer electronics and technology, it's really, figuring out kind of, where those behaviors are going. How do you kind of pivot plans on the fly? For us, the interesting thing over the past year is, audio is growing, which is great. We're driving some of this in terms of the different categories and spaces and places that we're serving in terms of how audio can deliver more enjoyment and tangible benefits. And then, media consumption is also driving a lot of that in terms of proliferation of streaming and podcasting, working from home, obviously, and kind of how audio devices are enabling communication. There's just lots of challenges, but really lots of opportunities. So just kind of setting your plans, setting your strategies, and then staying really close to the customer and consumer behavior so that you can kind of adapt when their needs and desires don't quite fit with your best laid intentions and plans. It's kind of always a mix of challenge, but also with every challenge there is opportunity.
Absolutely. And that kind of segues really nicely into kind of the topic of today, which of course is speaking to marketing innovation and how Bose is able to innovate at this time and really, transform as an organization to take advantage of some of these trends. So, you mentioned that this is really kind of the time for audio to shine. So where are you seeing, the opportunity to really innovate within either that product experience or that customer experience? To help Bose, stay top of mind for its consumers and really take advantage, like I said, of some of these trends.
Yeah, I mean, for us from a product standpoint, there's lots of opportunity, and I think we are staying in lockstep as best we can. We have a pretty expanse of offerings that kind of sit within core, what you'd expect from a company and a brand like Bose in terms of headphones and speakers and sound bars. But then also, customers are now so used to audio kind of being accessible, anywhere and everywhere they go. So that's opened up all sorts of new exciting opportunities in terms of we service customers with sunglasses that play audio, Bose frames, a gaming device now that's dual purpose to service both kind of gamers and then also allow them to take a boom mic off and take their headphones with them in more of a lifestyle standpoint. We are now in the sleep buds. We make sleep buds to kind of help people get a better night's sleep, faster, longer, more soundly through the night. So, the landscape of kind of audio and sound and the way we can kind of help deliver real benefits to help people get more fulfillment, enjoyment, rest, energy from their day-to-day. It's a lot of possibilities that come with that.
I love it. It's really, I think, being a partner in so many different areas in people's lives where they really, need those touch points and that guidance. I especially liked the sleep buds and how it comes from kind of that companion app. I know that's something that I am definitely going to be getting this holiday, as well as probably for people in my family. Yes. I think it's much needed, especially after this kind of crazy time we've been living in. So from a product perspective, I mean, it's amazing that you've really leaned into, these immediate trends where you see that Bose can make a difference. In terms of like some of the more sort of internal innovation that you've had to lean into, tell me a little bit more about maybe some of the marketing tools that you've either kind of diversified or used for the first time recently.
Yeah, I mean, I think with kind of not being able to rely on stores or as heavily on stores, that's obviously forced a lot of innovation. And the obvious is, the upswing in digital that was happening anyways. COVID just accelerated it. The need to kind of drive and capitalize on e-commerce, again, kind of stating the obvious. But if you kind of click into our category and our business, demonstration and trial is so critically important, particularly when we're a brand that really stands for a superior performance and constantly innovating and pushing boundaries to deliver better performance, better sound time and time again. So kind of trial and giving a customer a chance to experience the product and giving them a really quality demonstration has been tried and true to the business for many decades. So kind of when you take the brick and mortar and the in real life aspect out, then you have to really kind of lean into virtual and digital demonstrations. So we've been having a lot of fun and some good success really testing out new ways and techniques, platforms, partners, et cetera, to really showcase what our products do, particularly new products and new form factors that people might not be as aware of through a digital experience. So that, I think, is the real headline of where a lot of the kind of marketing innovation has focused. I'd also say with that too, when you're kind of working with a lot of different and new platforms and partners, that then kind of puts more of the storytelling in their hands. Also, I think leads to lots of interesting opportunities and kind of learnings that come from it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Bose is in such a unique position, as you mentioned, to have kind of both that retail aspect as well as that e-commerce aspect. And so is looking to, figure out ways to kind of balance how you're getting kind of the customer interaction. And what we're seeing at Braze too is a lot of, our customers that were formerly very experiential focused are really leaning into sort of these trends that we see from D2C performance brands specifically. And I know you mentioned this as well when we spoke, but the aspect of customer feedback and how important that is in terms of, not even just understanding if your product is performing or not, but really how you can listen to customers to understand the trends and really where to move in the space. So could you talk a little bit more on that too, how you've really leaned into leveraging customer feedback and the tools, the listening tools that you've used?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we use a wide variety of tools and techniques to kind of understand how customers are responding and feeling about our offerings. I mean, the customer is queen and king, empress and emperor of all that, of all of our success, and they determine, how strong our plans are. It's really about, for us, kind of, you set a strategy. It's based on assumptions And then you constantly check those assumptions through the device of or through the technique of customer feedback, and then you reset and update your strategy accordingly. So the most critical thing is customer reviews and kind of this the star ratings, and more importantly the commentary that comes back through customer feedback. And we've got we're blessed to generally, we do have really positive feedback to our products, but then oftentimes we take feedbacks in reviews or in social media comments or more direct calls into our customer service, and try to make adaptations to our products when we can. Sometimes the lag time is not quite immediate when you're dealing particularly with a lot of tech and hardware, but then certainly in terms of our marketing, the voice of the customer is something we take really seriously, and we try to check in on that, if not daily, certainly then weekly, particularly during busy seasons like Q4 and the holiday timeframe, to make sure we're seeing how customers are responding to both the new products as well as the marketing, and then making the necessary optimizations to deliver for success.
And along those lines, have you encountered any kind of feedback or any types of reviews that really made you, provide an aha moment or an insight for your team to kind of take and run with?
Let's see. I don't know if there's like one particular thing. I think it's, there's certain things. I mean, like we've had, we were quite open, and we are open about where we have to make trade-offs, in order to deliver the best possible experience at a possible time for a customer. So, it was covered pretty well. You mentioned sleep buds. It's our second generation of sleep buds. About a year or so ago, we kind of had to sunset, our first foray into the sleep bud category, because we were getting lots of feedback from customer that the battery didn't have as much kind of lasting life as they needed. And we certainly had hoped. So we had to make the hard decision to kind of pause for quite a bit, reset the program, and then relaunch this year. So that's an example of a big, impactful kind of material decision in regards to the P&L. As we're now launching into some new and different categories like gaming, and attempting to do a little bit of a different foray. I mean, we're getting lots of real honest feedback, most of it quite positive. Some of it though is more like, hey, well, what about this, and what if the mic combined with the headphone, and could I maybe just get one and not the other? So we're taking that all seriously, and trying to adapt acutely in terms of what we can do from a communications perspective to give them the best kind of response along the way, and I'm thinking more moving forward to what that might mean in terms of our ultimate offering.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's fantastic to hear too, because I know that Bose has one of those, very significant communities too of, diehard brand fans that like to kind of purchase sort of the suite of your products. And so it's really great to hear that, your team is so invested in taking that feedback and, having it applied to product innovation. So acutely that, that they're really involved in some of those decisions as well. So wanting to pivot just a little bit. So one of the ways that we've seen a lot of retailers also think about, innovating, especially during this time, and transforming, is from an internal perspective with their teams, and how really they're structured to take into account things like now this influx of customer feedback, these new tools that are needed to launch their e-com businesses. Can you speak a little bit about kind of how your teams are structured to take advantage of either the trends or opportunities, and then of course address the challenges that you're seeing as well?
Sure. I mean, we try to have as much expertise and capability on hand as possible. I'm personally and many, I'm personally blessed to be surrounded by a wonderful, really smart people who certainly make me look good more often than I personally deserve. And I mean, I think at Bose, we have a wonderful culture with really smart people who really care and bring a ton of respect for one another, care for one another, and most importantly, integrity to each other and to our customers to the table. I mean, it's often a combination of, you have folks that are real strong kind of specialists and subject matter experts on a particular, part of marketing or particular communications channel or sales channel. And then you have more folks that are maybe a bit more kind of, broader in terms of, what they cover. I think more and more, and as I think about teams and as I think about a people manager, we all, certainly myself included, we all need to be kind of open to learning new things, particularly when you're in a B2C category and really in a consumer-led business like we are. The customer is ultimately going to kind of help shape your job prospects, kind of the skill sets you need to focus on and develop and acquire. So I think just an openness to, what you did yesterday might not exactly be what you do tomorrow. And there is no kind of straight line in any career path or job description is really important. So, I think we're all kind of thinking about and figuring out new skill sets and new opportunities to learn about. I just talked about a few moments ago the importance of virtual and digital demonstrations, and kind of having folks in social media feeds and on our site and in YouTube really give a good quality product demonstration that is like fit to those platforms and those audiences. I honestly, I would look back a year ago today. I mean, I think like notionally, I would have given that some recognition of like, yeah, that's something that we probably need to be doing, but certainly wouldn't be like, wasn't thinking about like I am now, which is like fundamental to, kind of how we show up.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's such a great example too, and how, marketers kind of across the board have to really become kind of technologists as well, and also kind of understanding, the data aspect as well as the consumer aspect, and sort of, brand builders and performance drivers all at once. And so it's really a time, to your point, that, marketers have to flex more than ever within kind of all these different skill sets, and ramp up kind of quickly as well.
Yeah, and I think that those things are not mutually exclusive. Brand marketing definitely can be influenced and benefit from having a performance mindset and using performance marketing and precision kind of marketing type techniques to still build brands. And I mean, you mentioned, I think, DTC brands before, and I think a lot of the DTC brands that have kind of emerged over the past 5 to 10 years are great examples that they've developed great brands without maybe doing the traditional, like, top of the funnel brand awareness, brand marketing, big brand campaign play. And then at the flip side, those that maybe sit more and on precision and performance marketing tactics, I mean, they still need to be thinking like, yeah, they need to drive ROI and, ROAS and all the kind of lower funnel metrics that, we all know of, but still have kind of a commitment and a responsibility to drive brand and kind of real meaning and emotion and target customers' hearts and minds.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great way to put it, and ensuring that, the people on your teams have those balances is ever more critical. So, I mean, that's incredible insights. And, as we think about sort of the future and some kind of takeaways from our discussion today, would love to see, what are your kind of predictions for retail, or more specifically, even the consumer electronics category, as we head into the holiday and beyond?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, I think all predictions are destined to not be correct.
That's out the window for sure.
Right. But I mean, I do think, kind of like I talked about, the advent of virtual selling, live streaming is definitely a real thing. I'm always fascinated by and I think my team would support me in saying this, like kind of continue to think about kind of social media and influencers and all the economies that come with that, and e-commerce and retail, and kind of the amalgamation taking place and how those things are coming more and more closer together. I mean, I think we see like TikTok and Walmart, for instance, now have somewhat of a closer connection relationship wise in terms of organization. I'm not quite clear on exactly how that works, but we see over in China, that's kind of the models that how things run there with, Baidu and JD and Ali. So I think more and more that's where it's going to go, where it's like the influencer and social economies and e-commerce and retail will continue to become closer together, and you can do more kind of direct marketing and selling, across the two. Yeah,
absolutely. I completely agree. And I know another thing that we spoke about too in our previous conversation is just the fact that, along with all these channels that are converging, marketing mixes are certainly going to get kind of shaken up a little bit. And one of the things that is going to be kind of refocused on is sort of the pre-purchase and kind of post-purchase connections with a customer. So we'd love to hear your thought on that too, knowing that, Bose, like I said, has this incredible community of sort of diehard fans and brand lovers. And so would love to hear your take as well on how you're thinking of kind of the pre and post purchase and balancing kind of those aspects of the customer relationship.
Yeah, I mean, they all play a part. So I don't want to kind of say that, one is insignificant and one is, all powerful. That said, the purchase and post purchase part of the cycle, I think continue to become more critically important. I mean, in terms of pre-purchase and kind of the traditional ways and means that we try to build brand and drive awareness and preference. I mean, it's those traditional techniques, by the day become, more inefficient due to the media landscape and how people consume their information, how they can avoid traditional advertising. Those that don't have to pay the tax that is advertising aren't paying it. They're just going straight to their phones and to Netflix, and never have to actually see an ad or use ad blockers. So you got to be really smart on how you think about driving the necessary parts of that funnel pre-purchase, because you do have to do it. It's probably just through a bit different ways and means than the previous day, the previous year, so on and so forth. So, but then at the same time, the purchase and the post-purchase are so critical. And, as a marketer, I should be careful to say first and foremost, like, great product ultimately is going to be the number one driver of great experience. So, lesson to the kids out there, if you get into marketing, work for a company that makes great product. Great product makes everything easier. And by and large, Bose is a company that, makes everything easier by often having great products. In terms of the post-purchase piece, if you have a great product, that should lead to a great experience, and making sure that kind of the out of the box, in our instance, experience and the usage and ownership experience is great. And then giving customers, the tools and the incentives and the rewards to share their great experiences, either be it through kind of user-generated content or through referrals, or through putting up a great review. I mean, those types of things work really well. I think the customer feels some sense of ownership and kind of delight in ownership of the product and closer relationship to the brand. And then there's just efficiencies to the bottom line and kind of to the marketing line. The more and more customers are sharing their great experiences and kind of promoting it within their networks and their friends and family, I think there's almost, in a way, well, I just said a moment ago, advertising continues to have its struggles in and of itself. There's no better advertising than like a satisfied customer, as the saying goes.
Yeah, no, I love that. Nurturing the customer relationship, kind of throughout their connection with the brand is so important. And thinking about just, even after they've purchased, how else are they kind of continuing to kind of feed into the brand? And, as mentioned time and time again, leveraging those insights to continue to make your community stronger, which is incredible. So with that, I guess I'm going to turn to the audience then to see if there are any questions from that side as well. Let's see the chat function here. Great. Okay, we do have some questions. So this touched on this a little bit, kind of the merging of sort of retail space with the e-commerce site. But what do you think the future of experiential marketing will look like? Especially kind of that how important that sort of try to buy is for a lot of brands.
Yeah, I think experiential continues to prevail and be super important. Like people need to be able to kind of touch, feel, experience the product, and the brand is going to be super important. At the same time, brand with a capital B has to be more than just, the products it's trying to sell in a customer's eyes. I just think the definition of what experience is and kind of the platforms and the vehicles in which people have their experience is going to continue to evolve. So, see kind of in real life gatherings, obviously right now that's on hold. And what the new normal kind of looks like is still a bit TBD. So, experiences, so experiential will remain. I think it's increasingly going to be through virtual experiences, is ultimately where more and more kind of capital investment will go.
Absolutely. Definitely, how to continue to kind of bring sort of that hands-on participatory feeling online is going to be, I think, a bigger and bigger challenge. And with that, there are so many new channels, I think, popping up from, more shoppable, units on Instagram, and of course, TikTok. That's really just been skyrocketing, especially within kind of the Gen Z population. Would love to understand too a little bit how you're thinking about reaching maybe different segments of your audience with kind of this kind of fragmented landscape now. I just read a stat the other day that Americans, it mapped out time spent by Americans online, and it shows essentially that we are stretching 24 hours a day into 31.5 hours, meaning, there are 6 hours a day that we are multitasking, which is crazy to think that we're actually stretching time. But, in order to get in front of audiences, it's becoming more critical to be in kind of those right channels. And so just love to understand, how you're thinking about sort of your audience mix with those channels.
Yeah, it starts by being really focused on where you're at with your customers. Kind of how many are buying? Are they new? Are they kind of returning? Are they loyalists? Kind of going from there. So, we're constantly looking at the state of our business, but the state of our business is really influenced by kind of our customers' opinion and feedback to the business. So, without getting into too much detail, it's, the general kind of rule of thumb is go where the customer is going, understand what the customer is looking for, and kind of adapt accordingly. I think, it's interesting. It's a dichotomy of when you think about, there's so many different platforms that change so quickly, and the attention spans are very finite. At the same time, though, you got to continue to be thinking about where you're at in terms of share of voice, share of mind. What does your brand represent? What does it stand for? And that is, those are things that take constant attention, constant nurturing. There's, the very rare does something kind of, a switch get flipped overnight. So, there's no short, easy way to kind of answer those things. It's just constant attention and kind of constant, analyzing and responding to where the customer's going.
And tell me a little bit too about maybe sports sponsorship strategies. A lot of sponsorship strategies had to be revisited during this time, knowing that things were being less attended, more attended. So we'd love to hear kind of your thoughts around sponsorships and what that looks like, especially as we head into the holiday.
Yeah, so we have several pretty significant sports sponsorships working with the NFL. We've worked in Formula One with the Mercedes team. We've just launched a recent partnership kind of tied to our foray into gaming with League of Legends. So, I think, there's nothing that unifies and generates mass audiences like sports. That prevails time and time again. This year has brought challenges and got, certainly I've spent many hours thinking through scenarios and looking at kind of what our agreements are and what options or opportunities are. So I think, I actually don't really remember the question, but, so sports is sports is a wonderful platform to really, reach an audience that's highly engaged and at mass. At the same time, I think the nature of sports consumption and how people connect to their favorite sports, their favorite teams, their favorite athletes, it's always changing. I was saying years ago that like you can be a huge fan of a team or of a sport and not actually watch that much of the game. There's so much lifestyle and kind of peripheral content and coverage that goes outside of the game. Now, certainly that I think that prevails, and at the same time, we're in a way fortunate that kind of on-site in stadium and arena activation and signage has never been too much of our focus. We've already been kind of pivoted towards being visible in broadcast. And then really leaning into kind of the lifestyle outside of or beyond the pitch, the field, the track. So really doing a lot in social. So I think kind of, generically speaking about sports, they're awesome in terms of their reach and their scale. In terms of how you activate from a brand, you probably need to be thinking about a diversified portfolio because sports are unpredictable. 2020 more than ever. So you need different avenues to kind of optimize and adapt to ultimately be successful in the long run.
Yeah, and I can imagine that the gaming space, kind of you're leaning into the gaming space is actually helping, with the esport aspect as well. So that's I feel like a really strong, I guess, stance in terms of still being able to maintain those sponsorships and partnerships, just kind of taking a different sort of channel approach to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then, so what else in terms of, some other emerging channels that we see a lot of our customers really taking advantage of and kind of creating unique ways now more than ever recently within, the past couple months, have been channels like OTT, for example. Is that a channel that you're thinking of leaning into? Is that something that you guys see heavily in terms of, cutting through that clutter and getting through the kind of the attention of those audiences?
Yeah, I mean, that's where a lot of our video has been focused in recent times. Most of our linear or traditional broadcast is candidly attached to the NFL through that relationship and featuring our players. But then for the most part, most of our video investment kind of impressions comes through, non-linear, be it more the traditional digital side or OTT, connected TV, whatever, umbrella you want to call it. So we've got a lot of different things cooking in those spaces and testing and learning lots of stuff.
Testing and learning is kind of the key to the game. Do you find that, because of all these sort of rapid changes that are taking place, that you're more or less kind of flexible with your marketing mix moving forward? I know kind of traditionally a lot of stuff is set, it's, your background in advertising and media as well. A lot of times you go through these very extensive kind of planning phases. So a lot of these decisions are kind of made, months in advance. Do you find that that's kind of a trend that's going to continue on your end? Or do you think that it's going to kind of evolve and you're going to be more nimble kind of with these aspects moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, we've certainly gotten more nimble. Every year, every cycle, we get more nimble and shorter and more responsive. So that's not going to change. And I think the blessing of having tons of feedback and measurement is you should be able to make decisions and adapt more regularly in a more agile manner. So I don't see that trend reversing anytime soon. Although I mentioned before, predictions are like,
absolutely.
I'll stand by that one.
Right. And I love how you speak a lot about sort of your experimentation strategy and how, you're continuing to really lean heavily into that with Bose. To explain a little bit more about how you kind of go about that and what are your kind of key learnings for maybe brands that are really looking to get more into experimentation and innovation that haven't really done a lot of kind of test and learn previously?
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts with a little bit of, a balancing of kind of seeing where your customer is going and then having some vision and ambition of where you could go to kind of stay in lockstep or stay a step ahead of the customer, that kind of having that established up front and arguably at the top is really important. I think having a culture where you can test and not everything's going to be successful, and you kind of take learnings from the wins and the losses is also important. Kind of in some ways, the learnings from the misses are more impactful than kind of those from the wins, if you will. And then just have purpose in your testing. It's easy to just do things, try things because these are things you think you should be doing, but like have real kind of understanding up front about why we want to do this, what we're trying to accomplish. We had a good colloquialism recently, like I was like, what, why, so what? so we should bring that back. I think one of my team's listening to this. Having kind of that, a framework in place, whatever it might be, that kind of gives real intention and meaning to what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's not necessarily having like a strict learning agenda, but it is, not just testing for testing's sake. It's really what are the insights that you're looking to really get. And then to your point, having a culture that is so literally, available to kind of fail and fail fast is so important too. So, how you're structuring your teams to your tools to be able to get kind of quick learnings and insights is also super important, which I love that you spoke about as well.
My pleasure.
Awesome. Well, I think unless we have any more questions from the audience, looks like Nina popped back in. But it was such a pleasure chatting with you, Pat, and so great getting to know you. And I'm really looking forward again to getting those sleep buds. Something I can.
All right. We'll be in touch. Thank you, Emily.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care.
Thank you, Pat and Emily, for joining us today.